Welcome back to Beyond the Wrench. My name is Jay Goninen, and I am your host. We spend a lot of time in this industry talking about the technician pipeline, how we attract and retain talent, but today we're shifting the focus to a different pipeline that doesn't get nearly enough attention, and that is ownership. What happens when the torch gets passed, or maybe when it doesn't? My guest today wants to spark a bigger conversation around second generation shop ownership, why more kids of shop owners aren't stepping in, and what opportunity might be getting overlooked. Brad Templin, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good morning, Jay. Thank you for having me on. Yes, doing well. It's beautiful somehow February here in Chicago. We're 57 degrees. I feel like just a couple weeks ago we were 9 inches of snow and -10. So we'll take the ups and the downs.
Yes, being just north of you in Wisconsin, we go through all of those ups and downs through winter as well. Nice sunny day outside. We'll take them when we can get them. Now, as we were getting kicked off, and even in our pre-show meeting, just hit it off with you on so many different things. And I'm really looking forward to this one just because I think you've got a very unique perspective, a very unique upbringing, and it'll be a fun show. I mean, I think holding it to an hour could be a challenge, but I'm looking forward to this one.
Me too. I my big thing is hopefully this just resonates with somebody or starts the wheels to turn. And as always, I hope all of us are just so prideful of this industry and prideful of what we do.
Yeah. Well, let's start with your journey. You didn't take the typical path straight into the family business. Walk us through what you thought your career was going to look like and maybe how that eventually shifted.
Right. So surprisingly, the story starts back in 1919 with my great grandfather. He's the one I say got us all into this. So I'm fourth generation from that standpoint, automotive. He started a parts distributorship company in 1919 and just thought that these engines he was building at the time are going to break and we need a parts division. And they ended up actually, his boss said, no, let's just make another company. And so the two of them did that for a number of years. They grew it pretty successfully. He really surrounded the Chicago area, had about 13 warehouses, and eventually sold out to a larger company. And my dad was the first one to walk away from that. So he was, getting into the business at a younger age, saw all of his uncles in the business. He was one of the younger cousins as well. So his cousins were in the business and decided, if I'm going to do this, I think the best opportunity is maybe I do it on my own. And so in 1981, he went and bought it was technically a two-bay gas station, but the two bays just stored tires. And even here in Chicago for 12 years, we did tires outside on jacks. And
Oh,
everything was inside was just storage of stock. And then still to into the 90s, we always did full service gas. So that's kind of how I cut my teeth in this. I would go there on weekends and such, and I'd be the gas pumper. And I loved it. I thought it was so fun. But in that reality, though, I never really got into the automotive side, the tire side, really too much into the business. Unfortunately, my father did pass when I was younger. I was 6, but my mom stepped up. My mom's been, I'm sure we'll get into it, but she's superwoman. She's been running this for 28 years. And especially in the 90s, it wasn't too common to see a female shop owner. But she did it. And I think that kind of maybe is why I took this different path. And part of it too, I just feel like it was the 90s growing up and go get good grades, go to a good college, get more good grades, get a decent job, go back, get more schooling, get more good grades. And then eventually you just like retire on a beach at executive conferences and dinners and you play golf with your clients and such. And I think that just a lot of our parents in the 90s thought that was success. And I look back on it now after going through this journey to get to here, and I think that they saw it as maybe the safe play or that it was going to be the least stress for us to build a career.
yeah.
And there was just myself, I know other friends at the time that their dads were, owned electrician companies or contractors or industrial supply, whatever it be. And all of us really never were involved in those businesses. We were so heavily talked about you need to go to secondary education and you need to go build this white collar career. And so that's what I did. I actually went to school for aerospace engineering. Came out, had a job at a hydraulic fluid company. I went to Detroit and was lucky though. It was a fantastic company. They were already in fourth generation. Taught me a lot on the business side of treating employees, how to build culture, things of that. And I had a buddy that told me, "Hey man, I don't know what you're thinking or what you're doing, but you're like really gung ho on this corporate thing. What about the family business?" And at that time, I was about to graduate. I went back to Michigan to get my MBA and was thinking, it's tires. What are you talking? I don't want to go back and do that. Like, I don't even know it. I never worked in it really. What do you mean this family thing? And he's like, I don't know. It's just, this is the line. Or just, I feel like I always thought about this after our long conversations was, do you want to go build something for somebody else? Or do you want to go build it for you? And I think that just was something I couldn't shake. And probably after a month of stewing on it, I called my mom. She was coming out to Detroit to visit. We were at a bar, and I said, "Hey, I got something to talk to you about. What do you think about me quitting, moving, coming home, and I work for you?" And I think she about fell off the bar stool.
Talk me through that conversation, because you had to have put thought into it, right? A lot of thought. And when she's coming to Detroit, is it something that you're nervous about talking to her about? Is it something that you like, as you're approaching it, you don't know how to approach that conversation? I feel like that is it's an odd conversation for somebody you're so close to, right? And that
Yes.
you're sitting down and you're like, I don't know how she's going to take it. I have to think that was a part of the conversation where in your head it's kind of spinning rapidly and like, how am I going to approach this?
In twofold is, I think too, in growing up in the 90s too, that our parents really thought and believed in that you could go do anything, right? If you go to these good colleges, right, you do this path that we talked about, you can go do anything. And so I feel like I had that inside of me of you can go do anything. And looking back on it now, I almost feel like maybe I was just like wide-eyed optimist. I thought, yeah, this is going to be great. Like I'm going to come back. We're going to grow it. We're going to do this. And I think at that point, I was more so, I felt like I wanted to sell her on me coming back. To your point of, right, that I wasn't so nervous about coming back. I think I was more nervous about her buying in that this is going to be a good opportunity. This is better than me going on and moving to a more corporate role.
Well, when we talk through this and you can do anything, you didn't go to just any engineering school. Like Purdue's engineering school is one of the best engineering schools probably in the world, right? It is a top tier program that is really, really hard. And I look back to me growing up in the 90s, and what was interesting about Purdue and their engineering program was I grew up as a big racing fan. You can kind of still see I've got like race cars behind me, but Ryan Newman, who is the NASCAR driver, went to Purdue for engineering. And that was the one thing that stuck out to me, was that, I really was not interested in going that route. But then you look at somebody like that who is, at racing full time as their career, but then also going to engineering school. Then I started doing more research on Purdue's engineering program. And you're like, dang, that is not easy. So for you to go into engineering at one of the tougher schools to go through a program with, and then transition that over to where we're at now, it's incredible. And I have to imagine there are things that you took away from your time at Purdue or at Michigan to where like maybe you are applying those things today, or you're even if it's something in like I think of engineering as the ability to really think through a problem really well. Maybe that's simplifying it a little too much, but talk to me about that. What did you take out of Purdue and your lessons there that might apply to where you're at today?
Yeah, so I actually get more, it's a similar question, and I feel like I look at it the same way. A lot of people ask me, wow, you did all this, all that. Do you wish you would have done it differently, or do you wish that, you might have had a more direct path or whatnot? But to your point, I always go, hindsight's 2020. So I don't know what that might have looked like too, coming back in straight away or whatnot. But I love having that engineering degree just from the stance that I really, I mean, and I was not top of the class or anything like that. So appreciate those kinds of words. But I think that was really one of the first times though that I was truly, I mean, just really challenged. I went to a bigger high school here in Chicago, so was accustomed to being, around a lot of big fish, right? Not always being a big fish in a small pond, but you go to that next level and it's like, oh my gosh, these are some wicked smart people. And it was it was just that first time of really having to truly just go and prove myself and not know. I guess maybe that first time of not having that super strong conviction of you can do anything. It was like, oh, I'm gonna get my butt kicked here.
You're in the deep end now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, yeah, sink or swim. But those pieces I feel like still are with me today, that maybe I look at risk a little differently. Or to your point, right, that to me it's just a problem or an equation or a thing that needs to be dissected and looked at in pieces. And the risk doesn't scare me too much, or the risk doesn't make me not want to take action. And I think that I do go back to having that engineering degree, just going through those processes, even time at getting my MBA and such. I did that part time over a number of years at night while still working, but just I think just business in my mind is simple, and I know that sounds terrible to say, but I think it is so simple because any business is a people business. So if you can figure out people, you can do business. And again, that piece of it is just, it's an equation. It's what do they like? What do they need? How can I help? And that's to an employee, that's to a customer, that's to a vendor. And if you extend that olive branch, maybe I'm just young enough still, right? Haven't been burned enough that there's more often than not, it's just you extend whatever I've given, I've gotten back tenfold. And that's been a huge foundation to our business, I think.
Well, and I do think there's value in that. When you think through like the best technicians, a lot of times they have a very similar mindset or a very similar approach to an engineer in how they think through problems and how they, can have a plan ahead of time when they're going into a tough diag job or something like that. And I have a feeling that has to allow you to relate to some of your team as well, of like, hey, you know what, I understand, like, this is tough, like some of this is really, really hard to do, and maybe help guide them through thinking through a problem. Or maybe younger staff as they're coming in and helping them. I always look back to my time in school, and I wish I would have taken a piece of it a little bit more seriously. My parents would say they wish I would have taken a lot of it more seriously, but a piece of it that I wish I could tell my younger self was that, even if you're sitting in that geometry class or that algebra class where you might not understand how that's going to relate to your future profession, in a lot of ways, that's how I was very stubborn in that if I didn't think it was going to help me in the long run, I kind of just avoided it. Right. But when I look back, and something I tell my son is, you almost have to learn how to learn, right? You have to learn how to think through a problem. And I devalued that so much when I was in school, but looking back, I do think there's a lot of benefit to just doing hard stuff and getting through it and figuring out how to fix something. And I wish I would have taken that part a little bit more seriously, similar to what you're saying as you went into Purdue. Like, it forces your brain to kind of expand.
100%. And maybe I hadn't even reflected on that myself as much as what you're saying right now. And yeah, I just think, part of that business side of it and ownership side, why I say, I guess maybe I think it's easy, is there's also so many resources out there now. And and not just with business, with anything, of online learning or in-person learning or podcast, or right. There's just so much. And it's not all great info. I'm the first to admit, right? We gotta be careful what we consume, but there's so much there that if you're willing to be a sponge, and to your point, if you're willing to learn how you learn too, and know that you can't just keep consuming and think it's all gonna stick. You got to figure out what works for you, and you can just keep growing and building, and you get better. I always say it. You can never expect the team to get better than the leader. You can never expect the business to outgrow the owner. So if there's problems, I look in the mirror every day. It's me. That's it. I caused it. I accepted it. I allowed it. Whatever happened, it was me. And if you do that, I think people start to give you a little more respect at times, and then they start believing too of, okay, we're doing something bigger than just dollars and cents.
Oh, what you just said there is so impactful because I 100% agree in that the more a leader can look in the mirror and say, this is my fault, regardless of what it is, it's under my umbrella, it's my fault. I do think that also sets the expectation for the leaders that work as a part of your team as well to really take that part seriously. If you're showing it by example, you're leading by example with that, and you see one of your managers that does something similar where they take responsibility for something, it just shows a huge amount of growth in a person when they're able to take that on their own shoulders.
Absolutely. And, you know, another thing that I'll always say, we kind of talked about this at the pre show this time. Of our four managers, three of them started for us as tire techs.
Ooh.
And to see those guys grow and to be a part of that journey has been incredibly rewarding. But I mean, any good leader I would hope would say, you know, I just kind of put the path in front of them. I dusted it off a little. I painted a picture. These guys just went running. They believed in themselves as well. Like they did the true work. I just kind of painted a picture and they went, okay, yeah, that makes sense to me. I can do it. Let's go.
I there's so much good there that I want to talk through, but I do want to revisit one thing before we move on, and that is your mother and what she was able to accomplish with the business through a really, I'm assuming, a very, very tough transition to where she had kind of the guts to take it head on. And I can't give more respect to a person than somebody like that, right? That takes it head on, I'm sure through a very difficult time. And to be able to not only take it on, but to elevate it, it sounds like your mother's a pretty impressive person.
I am truly lucky. I mean, that's like the foundation of everything for me, right? Like personal, professional now too, right? So she is, I said it, she's a superwoman. I don't know how she did it. I couldn't do what she did. I don't know. Now that I have my own kids, now that I'm in the bit, I'm going, oh my gosh, like, whoa. I, you know, didn't realize everything that was going on at the time or what it would have taken for her to do everything she was doing. And I think again, she set that example early on in our lives of, you know, just hard work, perseverance, believe in yourself, don't give up. And she's never taken the easy road. She's and oh man, yeah, I could talk. You want to talk about going over an hour? I could do that about my mom. And to your point, right? She wasn't really overly involved in the business. She did some, you know, kind of the bookkeeping here and there, and really not bookkeeping, was more just kind of accounts receivable and such, and not even on the tire side. Was mostly on the gas side because we just had so many gas accounts. And yeah, it was, you know, just kind of a sudden path thing, and stepped in and really ran with it. And she was the first to say, I came in just to keep everything stable, and I ended up falling in love with it and falling in love with our people. And there was, I mean, even just of late, you know, there was still a handful of people that were hired by my dad that were still here after 2010. And did she just, I think she saw how he did things well and even improved upon that too with her own flavor and her own flair. And I think that's too what I saw when you went back to that conversation of what was I nervous about that I just saw like, man, this has such great roots. This has such a foundation to grow. I I really felt like it was a rocket ship, just needed an ignition underneath it.
Oh, I. So, what does it look like when you have that conversation in Detroit, and maybe your kind of transition period back? Walk me through the first days of coming back. What was your first role? What all were you doing once you got back?
And again, I give this so well to my mom to have the foresight, and I think just like true leadership that I came in. So she offered me basically a tire tech salary. Said I need you to work a tire tech schedule. You know, we're open on weekends. You're gonna be here. You're not getting a special schedule. And I think it's going to take at least a year of you to learn this business before you can ever talk to me about expansion or buying another store or any of that. You are coming into, ground up. And she still jokes about it that she actually did that hoping I would say no. And she still says, she's like, I really thought I was going to give you such a bad offer, but in a test too, right? I'm going to give him such a bad offer. I don't even think he's going to take it. And I don't know if this is even the best option anyway. So maybe he'll say no. But if he is going to say yes to this, I guess I'll start to take this a little more serious. And I was just like, yeah, no, I mean, that makes sense. And she was like, oh, okay. I said, but if you have these kind of stipulations or requirement, whatever you want to call it, I'm coming back to grow the business though. I can't wait around. The business in its capacity and stage it's at right now, I don't think it can sustain you and I long term. And so I'm willing to do that if you're willing to say that we really are going to grow, and I'm not just going to wait around for every year. It's another 3 years I'll retire, another 3 years I'll retire. And I do think that, unfortunately, that piece of it is probably one of the hardest pieces in family business, is just that communication, that clarity, solid expectations, following through with the expectations you also agreed to, right? There was never a time where I felt I put in the effort or I put in the work and then she started to backtrack. I could tell, right? She was like, yeah, I mean, you jumped over these hurdles. I didn't think you were going to do that. Then you jumped over a couple more hurdles. I didn't think you'd want to do that. So I guess it's time for me to pony up too and say, okay, we're in it.
I love that she did that, right? To put you through some of those obstacles, and ultimately, if you do take that path, it is going to set you up for more success, right? Because then it's not saying that you didn't do any of the stuff. You didn't, it's the owner's kid and they just got elevated immediately. You went through that process. And I think for those other shop owners that might be listening to this out there that are looking at maybe that succession plan, this is such a good tip right here to really start from the ground floor up and have them do some jobs that might, I think a lot of people might think are beneath them. Whereas if you don't do those jobs, it's really hard to understand not only the job itself, but sometimes how hard that job is, right? There's times when, especially now with tires, where sidewall's tiny and it really
Yep.
stinks to do those tires, right? So I think something as simple as that really probably had to have laid a really good foundation for you coming back into the business.
Oh my gosh. And like I said, I feel like it was really her leadership is why that even happened, or how she came up with that idea, and how it played out really is because I think it's hard too, right? That there is that side of it of, well, I'm his mom. I don't want to see him fail, or I don't want to have him, I don't want his life to suck per se, right? And, you know, I think it is a scary idea for a parent of, where's that fine line that they have to walk of, I want to be your parent. I want to open doors for you. I want to give you an opportunity. But I think we all talk about it at some point of like, where do you realize like I'm spoiling versus I'm encouraging? And that, for my entire life, I think my mom has done incredibly good job of that. And then to your point of, I came in, I think people were like, oh, okay, Brad's coming back. That's interesting. Like, never thought we would have him come back, right? I would, maybe stop in at times when I was home for holidays or whatnot. Maybe I'd even get something done on my car or whatnot while I was home, right? And I mean, a lot of like I said, there was a handful of these people that had known me before high school, really, right? Or so, they'd known me as Brad, not as the owner's son, too, right? And the coming in and working and being a tire tech and learning all that, I think it proved it to her. But to your point too, right? It was, I don't think that these people were questioning, can he do it? Or does he have good ideas? Or does he even know how to do this? I think it showed them of, okay, he's not just doing this because this is the easiest route. That this is the easiest way for him to become an owner of a business and make some good money along the way, maybe. That he's like totally in, he's ready to do this just like we are. And I didn't see it that way at the start. I didn't think of it that way at the start. I was just like, yeah, it seems like a reasonable ask on your side to prove myself. And then to your point, I going through that all of a sudden saw, oh my gosh, like these people respect me, and I haven't even been here a year yet, and I did earn that respect. And in my head, I wasn't even trying, and she set me up to be successful in that. So I give her that 100%.
And what's interesting to me is the reservation she probably had with you coming back, because that's something we see in a lot of parents, right? Of folks that own shops, and maybe their reservations to have their children come into the shop because maybe they'd gone through some hard times to get the shop to where it's at, and again, you want to see your child have more than you did, and so it almost sticks in their brain a little bit of, this is such a hard business at times. If they can go down that white collar route, and do something different, the perception is that their life is going to be easier. And when you looked at it, and I think I was in the same boat, where you look at it and you say, you know what, you've built a really good business. And for me, I'm sure you're probably in the same thought process a little bit, where in our own family shop, the name on the building meant something to me, right? And if we were to sell that business to somebody else, there was something in my head that I'm a sentimental person. I've seen the history. I grew up in the hard times of that business, and I want to see that continue to flourish and be a strong pillar in the community, and really kind of be, in our little small town, this shop means a lot to people, because if it went away, it would cause pain for people because they'd have to find somewhere else, and there's nowhere else close. So, when I look at it, the sentimental side of it is big, and obviously that's more of the emotional side. But then the business side of it, you're like, there's potential there. Like, there's a lot of potential in this shop. So I'm curious if you had kind of a similar thought process with the company, or like, talk to me a little bit about that side of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then I joke about it, or I talk about it a lot too, because I want it to become a thought for more of us in this industry. And I think it somewhat comes back to just keeping the pride, right? That at times, people want us to think that we're just a grease monkey, or you just do this, you just do that. And there's so much success, and there's such a great runway right now in front of this industry, that if private equity, and even just these larger, right, box stores, or larger organizations are wanting to grow, are putting their eggs in this basket, are putting that investment in. And this industry itself is so fragmented into mostly independently single store operators, that the number one hurdle they should have logically would be second generation. If they're saying this is such a great investment, this is such a right opportunity, second generation should be, and I say second generation, I don't want to keep it to just being a kid, right? It could be a standout foreman. It could be your standout manager. It could be your standout diet guy that, sure, maybe your kids aren't interested, or maybe your kids are too young, or whatever it be. And you can still pass that torch without having to be, the only option is I sell out to somebody bigger who's going to give me that payday. You can still get a solid payday in a transition period, and it doesn't have to leave the family or the town or the community.
Mm.
And that, I think, we lose at times. And it makes sense too, right? I just think of it from that founder mentality, or that first boots on the ground mentality, grassroots, that person never forgets what it was like having 3 people on staff, then 4 people on staff. Then maybe they got to 5 people on staff and it was too soon. And then payroll got a little stretched, or '08 comes around, right? And those feelings, and that concern never leaves them. And that's great, because I think that we should always remember that it's not always up and to the right? But from the parent side, then I think it gets muddied, because they go, I'm protecting them by not having them come in to do what I had to do.
Mm.
I'm protecting them by I don't want them to lose sleep like I did. I don't want them to have that concern of, how do I get paid? Or I don't want them to go 2 weeks without a paycheck, but everyone else got paid to keep the place afloat. And then I'm hoping June and July get busy, and I'll make up a little bit of that, right? I mean, we've all, as us as owners, us as kids, we all saw that or experienced it or know it, and they think it's protection by not showing this as an opportunity. And that I think is totally understandable and it's commendable from a parent standpoint. But I mean, we just went through what kind of layoffs in the tech world. You can't
Yeah.
tell me those executives weren't losing sleep at night. Maybe they weren't worried about their exact paycheck or their whatever, but you can't tell me it wasn't a stressful time of I don't know what tomorrow might look like. I don't know how solid a footing I'm sitting on. And they might be running a $1 billion business unit, right? So I think the grass always looks greener, and we always think, well, yeah, they got the protection because it's they made $1 billion last year. How could they not keep their job, right? But we see it all the time. It's stressful. It's business. It doesn't matter if you're $500,000 shop or a 500 million, 5 billion. It's going to get stressful no matter where you're at. And so thinking that it's a protection or that you're not wanting somebody to have the same experience you did or the stress, I think no matter what, if you're going to be successful, you're going to get punched in the gut, you're going to get punched in the face, you're going to get kicked on the ground. Nobody has success in an easy way. And so you can't protect somebody from that. Hopefully you just gave them enough resources and tools and training along the way to be prepared for it. Because that's all we can do is be prepared for it.
And you have such a good point there too, in that as parents we want to protect our kids, but sometimes, and I'll say every time, the best way to learn is to go through it, right? And it is to go through some of those bumps and bruises because it's inevitably going to happen. I don't care how good of an operation you have. There are going to be times where the road's a little bumpy, right? And you need to learn to adapt. And that's, I think, in anybody where there's real lessons to grow off of and want to get better, right? Because if everything's just smooth sailing and you never have any problems, maybe you don't have that drive to want to learn more or grow further. And I it's taken me a long time over the course of my career, and I do think in business you do end up becoming a little bit more numb to a lot of things just because you've gone through a lot of things. Whereas if you're just if you're an employee, maybe you're shielded from a lot of kind of the behind the scenes chaos that happens. But so often in my career, that's been the case where I go through a really difficult time, but then come out the other side better because of it. Right. And I think my mindset has changed over the years to where you kind of, I think it's Jocko Willink that always says, like, if times are getting hard, good. I always think about that in a way where that has shifted my mentality a little bit to view those challenges as opportunities to get better and to really try to improve myself as a person, our businesses as a whole, the people that surround me. It just everything. When you look at that through a different lens, even from a parent's perspective of my kid is probably going to go through some stuff, and that's okay. They need to go through that. I can't bubble wrap them forever. They need to learn their own stuff. That can be really, really hard to come to terms with, but that's where a lot of growth comes from.
And I think one thing we would always want to say is my kid has grit. And I don't know, maybe that's just what
I
I've
love
always
that.
looked at it as, or it's been pushed for me. And that's even from my grandfather, my mother. And you can't do that. And I don't want to discredit anything, but in a sense, we talk about a lot of participation awards that it's sometimes you got to be okay that your kid's going to strike out, and you got to be okay that they're going to take the ball to the face one time or what. And where you become, I think, a great parent, and it totally relates exactly to leadership and business, is it's all in how you then respond to them. What do you do when the manager is down 20,000 year over year for February? What do you do when part margin starts to slip? What do you do when your main diag guy who, right, was humping it before, he's struggling to get the 40 hours anymore? What do you do? Do you, back to what I kind of said, right, do you look in the mirror and say, what environment am I giving them? What conditions am I putting? What tools did I give them, right? Be it marketing, be it my involvement, be it being in the community, and then can I go talk to them and say, look, you struck out, but how many times did you hit the ball this year? How many times did you get on base? How many times did you hit a home run? You struck out. We can't forget about all those things. And guess what? To your point, exactly. We're not letting off the gas. We're not going to stop pushing. We're not going to stop growing. You are going to strike out many more times, my friend. So don't be scared to strike out. The goal would always be, right? Can we just hit it more than we strike out? And then, even funny enough, right? It's like in baseball, we're not even hoping for more than that, right? We're hoping for 300 would be great, right? And at times, I think back to that in business of, it might be 3 strikeouts in a row trying something or a new vendor or process or what. And, it's a strikeout. It isn't a loss of the game. It isn't the end of the inning. It was just a single event, a single strikeout. We're going back to bat. And if you can do that for your kids, they're going to be great, hopefully. But I think more importantly, is anyone listening to this, owner, manager, even just a senior tech out in the shop, if you can get people around you to feel comfortable striking out and growing, that back to that rocket ship, that's a rocket ship waiting to ignite.
Every shop, dealership, and business in our industry depends on great technicians. Between the technician shortage, disconnected school relationships, and lack of trustworthy workforce data, it makes it difficult for shops to plan, hire, and grow. That's where ASE Connects comes in. Created in partnership with WrenchWay, ASE Connects is a membership designed specifically for shops like yours to help you build a stronger technician pipeline by connecting with schools, empowering you with tools and data to improve your recruiting, retention, and performance. With ASE Connects, you can connect with local schools through School Assist, start building relationships, and support the programs that educate our future technicians. You can also access verified data on technician pay, benefits, and labor rates through the Industry Data Exchange, so you know how your shop compares locally and nationally. Lastly, you can get proven strategies for leadership, employee development, and shop management through members-only guides, templates, and events. Join ASE Connects to strengthen your workforce and build a stronger, smarter shop. Learn more at wrenchway.com/solutions/shops or follow the link in the show notes. As you came back in to the business, first and foremost, I have to say, I love when you said second generation. It didn't necessarily mean a child of the owner. It could have been a key contributor. And I just look at so many opportunities for proper succession planning that doesn't happen a lot, right? Where a lot of owners will ride it out until, hey, I got a couple years left. I got to try and map something out here, try to make some money back on this after I've invested decades building this thing. And I think the thought process of succession planning can be very scary, but for those that are out there, I would encourage you to do so. And the reason for that is because by doing that, I think you set up so many opportunities to help that next generation succeed in whether it's proper management training, it's, leadership training. It is just trying to set them up, sending them to a course on QuickBooks or on, a lot of the CPAs will put on classes for the financial side of business, like trying to get whoever that next generation is to understand the business side, especially if they're coming from the technical side, is something that I think our industry lacks a lot of, because we're really guilty of just throwing somebody to the wolves and saying, hey, you were good out in the shop. We're going to throw you in that manager's chair. Good luck. And when you think through proper succession planning, I think that's an element that gets missed a lot, is that ramp up. And I do think that's something we can learn from corporate America, in that, I spent some time in corporate America. Their training programs were phenomenal. They spent a lot of time training me, and I learned so much in, a few months that they dedicated to just basically training me, right? And we see that gap a lot of times in our industry, whether it's through management or for technicians, as we're onboarding technicians, trying to throw them to the wolves too soon and having them not be successful because we threw them to the wolves too soon. As you look through this and kind of reflect on your time transitioning in, was there anything or any bit of advice you'd have for somebody maybe stepping into your shoes into kind of taking over a business, or maybe advice for that person that's handing the business down?
Absolutely. And the number one thing I would love to hope somebody takes away from listening to this today is, if you're a shop owner, and it doesn't matter where you're at in that process, if you're the 500,000 shop or the 5 million shop, you have a great asset. The sweat equity, like you just said, the 20 years or 10 years or whatever you put into that that is worth something. That should be prideful for yourself. This is not an easy industry. We get a lot of flack. People think that it's just cars. Why didn't you fix it right the first time, right? What do you mean I have to pay for diag, right? And so if you've done this for over 3 years, you've been through it. And don't lose that pride, and don't lose ever thinking that this isn't worth something. And I don't want to say that it's all crazy multiples and everything we read in, these large sales and such, but I would encourage you to know that it's worth it. It has a great value and a worth. And to your point of, here's some examples to think about. Transitioning to your kids. Sure, maybe you're thinking, I'm not doing that great, or we've never done gangbusters or anything, but maybe your kids just needed you to build that platform and they can go run with it. And I don't mean run with it that they have to get to 10 stores. Maybe they get to 2 stores, or maybe they take your store and they triple the sales in that store, though, right? And they start building a career for themselves. And we know what happened. That store tripled. You can't tell me the manager isn't having a better life. Lead technicians aren't having a better life. You can start supporting and growing better GSs. That ecosystem there is impacting so many people. And so I would just encourage them to know that wherever the stage is today, you have something that is worthwhile to so many people. And if it's not a child, I would so encourage you to think about maybe somebody like us that, yes, I would love we want to keep acquiring and growing. And I think that we do it in a good way and in the right way. But it could be that lead tech. It could be that manager who's been with you 8, 9, 12 years, and they are 12 years younger than you. And just think about what that impact would have on their life. I understand, maybe your kids are into something different, or you had 2 daughters that aren't involved or whatnot. But, that person now can come into this business. They have an opportunity. They can really change their family now with it too. And that opportunity, I think, is so special to this industry, because we have such a great runway in front of us that this is an industry that can't be AI'd out of. This is an industry that can't just be pushed away. We can go up against Goliath every day of the week with our customer service, our community involvement. So that is why this is such a huge opportunity for whoever's going to take over from you. Don't forget, this is just, it has so much worth. And I'm not saying money or value. This transition could change someone's life. Don't forget that. It doesn't have to be PE because they have the most money. It doesn't have to be, I don't want to say any names because I do believe there's some really good heavy hitting operators out there, but the place that's at 80 that says they want to get to 250, the place that's at 70 and wants to get to 150. I don't think that those are horrible options, but I just think we so often hear it and it's so heavily talked about. We start to think that that's the only option. And it's just not. I love this industry so much. It's changed so many people I see in this industry's life. And I don't want that to go away. I still want people to come in. As I said, 3 of our 4 managers were GSs when they started for us. And I know they will tell you, I never thought I'd even be a manager, let alone now we're getting to a point as, we keep growing. We're going to need a district manager, right? Did any of these guys, when they came to us 2 of them were maybe 20. One of them was under 20 when he first started working for us. The other guy I think was about 20, 21. They would be the first to say, I never thought I would do this. And now, we're big on promote from within. One of those guys is going to have to start overseeing a $15 million business. And what does that change for his life? What does that put his trajectory? How well can he support his kids now? And so those are the things I love and I take pride in. And I just think there's so much of that in this industry that doesn't get talked about.
Oh my goodness, I couldn't agree more. Everything you were talking about there, it is about the people, and it is about trying to make people's lives better however we can. And I do think it's time for our industry to take a little pride in everything, right? And if it's not devaluing your worth as a person or as a business, like we've got so many talented people in this industry and so many great businesses that, I mentioned our own family shop that if it went away, there would be an extreme pain point in our small community because there's nobody to backfill that. And, I look at that as almost like a civic obligation. I'm sure you guys do the same. I actually read about it on your website, all the philanthropic things that you're doing as a company that for the greater good of your communities. And, being able to sponsor that little league team or, just whatever contributions you're making, it is cool to see the greater good of all of the work that you're doing. And I have to give you guys a huge compliment because going to the website, you have a phenomenal website, but pointing out some of those philanthropical things that you're doing for the betterment of just your communities, pretty impressive stuff. That's really cool.
Well, I thank you for that. And I back to my dad for sure. My mom has continued it. I feel like we've always looked at it as if we're just fixing cars, we're not doing enough. And that was even from an infancy stage that they felt that. And now I just look at it as it's our team that allows us to do that. Our team operates at, an efficiency level, a productivity level that we have these extra reserves, we're able to be profitable, and money's never going to make anybody happy. That's something hopefully anyone can learn sooner than later. And every time like I said, anytime we've done anything, everything I've given, I've gotten back tenfold. And when you go and you see these, right now we're for the month of February, we call it Wipe Out Hunger. When you go to these food banks and you see 14 cars sitting in line waiting for food, and you see these people come in and they walk around and they're grabbing food and they have a smile on their face and they seem upbeat, and that there's just such a backstory somewhere that how they are here right now, and you just want to pour your heart into that. I that gets me so excited too, and that lets me know, right, of our team's doing the right thing. They're doing it right. We shouldn't be embarrassed to charge what we're worth and do what we're worth if we can make a lasting impact in the community.
Mm, amen. My goodness, that kind of gave me chills there. That is so cool. Like all the great work that you're doing, and it's so authentic. When I've talked to you, just it's pretty amazing what you're doing. Now, the other piece that I would talk to somebody that's in that successor type role, in I think maybe has changed in importance a little bit. I know the difference between my dad and I in regard to like 20 groups and coaching and all of that, but probably on different ends of the on the different ends of the spectrum here. For that, I know you and I have talked about your involvement in 20 groups and trying to talk with others in the industry. I just think there's so much power in that piece as well, right? And I've seen second generation groups. I've seen different levels of either coaching or 20 groups or just help, right? I think in a lot of cases, if nothing else, it's very therapeutic because you can talk to other people in your situation, but then too, you can learn so much from others in the industry if you open your ears. Talk to me about that, and like coming into the business, the impact that maybe some of that has had on you, and those outside learnings and kind of looking and seeking for those opportunities.
Absolutely. And as I said earlier, right, there is so many resources and tools available right now across the board in any industry, any field, that I would hope anyone could be humble enough and excited about the future enough to say, me asking for help or me admitting I don't know it all isn't the failure. The failure would actually be if I just coasted along and we didn't keep promoting people from within and we didn't give somebody a reason to show up tomorrow. And we couldn't build that, not just create the vision, but build the vision. And so at that point, I know it's cliche and I think it's just so true though, of like the five closest people to you are going to set your ceiling. And I hate that at times because I don't want somebody to think like I got to get rid of my friends or right or I can't hang out with you anymore. You're this. But I think it's what ecosystem do you spend the most amount of time with or who do you go to in, like you said, when you have a question, when you're curious, when you're concerned, when you're not sure, who do you go to? Doesn't matter in that sense, right? Who your friends are, this or that, but who are you getting that advice from? Who are you looking to say, have you gone through this? What have you done? Or who are you looking at to be like, man, they're at this scale. Now it makes this seem a little less risky. It makes this seem a little less scary. And I think about that all the time of going from one shop to two shop. And now we're looking at going from four shops to five shops. It feels so different and it feels really less scary at times and less risky. And I think that's only because of being involved in these types of 20 groups and coaching groups. And, we've had at times an executive coach that is just coaching my mom, myself, my stepdad. Like I said, I think you always be humble enough to know that you can never know it all. And there's always somebody that can help you. And help doesn't mean that they're smarter. It probably means in reality, I always say it, if I'm helping somebody, it's probably because I failed at that 3 times and I finally figured it out. That's why I'm able to help you. It's not because I solved the problem. I just know 3 ways to not do it. And that you can't get in a magazine and you can't get that necessarily from a podcast, right? You can get great ideas and you can get, tips and tricks and it's free. So I think that's great when you're starting out and when you don't have true money to invest in improvement in your own growth. But we talk about how much technician training and all that. Back to what I said at the start of this, no business is going to outgrow the owner. You can train your techs till they're blue in the face. You can train your sales staff. But if you're not growing, you're going to hold them back at some point.
Just absolutely phenomenal advice. I think that growth mindset, regardless of where you're at in your career, is so important. And as it relates to this conversation, even for that person that might be selling their shop, having the growth mindset and understanding maybe acquisition stage, understanding succession as a whole, who to talk to in terms of legal team or accounting team. There's so many different variables that go into anything that the more educated you are, or the more you educate yourself, the better prepared you're going to be for whatever life throws your way. Right. And so, kind of similar to what I'm saying there, for those of you looking to hand it to the second generation, my hope is that we can help set them up for success. Right. If you're doing that, and this is something I'll say that I think when you look at this, and if you're strictly just going for the largest dollar amount to sell, like I would warn you a little bit, because I think at times that could end up setting the company up for failure moving forward. Really being able to look out for that next generation and do whatever you can to set them up for success while taking care of yourself. I really think there's a lot of value in that. And, your mother did a phenomenal job of doing that with you. I think we need, your mother should actually run a class on that. I'm thinking like she did really, really well with you in general, but I think our industry could use more of that, right? Of just that understanding and knowledge from both ends of how we keep these businesses running for generations to come.
Absolutely. I would love to see that. I hope that, again, I don't think that Goliath is all bad, but I just think I don't want us to lose that young tech coming in can eventually become a shop owner, that gung-ho, ambitious 30-year-old manager really has an opportunity if somebody's willing to transition him into ownership. And that, I think, again, is what makes this industry so special.
I've absolutely loved this conversation. This week's episode of Beyond the Wrench is brought to us by Jasper Engines and Transmissions. Okay, your customer's engine or transmission has failed, but now is not the time for them to trade their vehicle. Not without a working engine or transmission. Besides, would they have kept their vehicle another 3 to 5 years if their engine or transmission had not let them down? If you answered yes, then Jasper Engines and Transmissions is your choice to give your customer's vehicle new life and many thousands of miles of enjoyable driving performance. When considering the high cost of a new or newer used vehicle, there's a pretty good case to be made for replacing a drivetrain component that has failed or is delivering poor performance. Rather than trading their car, truck, van, or SUV, install a quality remanufactured Jasper product for less than your customer would have to invest in a new vehicle or a newer used vehicle. Check out their website at jasperengines.com to learn more about the money-saving value of Jasper. Now, we end with some fun questions for you, and just 3 quick-hitting questions. First one being, what was your first car?
My first car, 2006 Ford Fusion.
All right. Reliable, good car. All right. I like that.
We still have it. It has been a shop car since 2013.
We were just looking at our fleet of loaners, and our loaners are all kind of mid 2010 Impalas. They seem to work good for us, but we have pickup and delivery cars. And one of them is still my brother's Mazda from when he was in college. So we were sitting there like, that one's starting to look a little peaked. We might need to retire it here sometime soon. But yeah. What's your favorite food?
Favorite food? Ooh, I do love seafood. So I would say lobster.
Lobster. Favorite spot to get lobster in Chicago?
Oh, it's honest to truth. We get lobster oftentimes at Costco, and my wife, this is just a shout out to her, she could run a restaurant. She is always trying new things, new flavors, new ways of cooking it. So I would actually say I enjoy just staying home. We get the kids something, and we try and push them into new foods and such, so they'll have a few bites. But usually we'll try and get them to bed a little early. They're still little. I got 3 and a 5-year-old. But right, get them to bed a little early. Mom and Dad can have some steak and lobster, maybe a drink, and just enjoy a night on the patio. Those are some of my favorite.
I agree. My wife is the same way. Phenomenal cook, which is not good for my diet, but we eat some delicious food. So I also love that. Last question. Do you have a common time you wake up in the morning? Do you have a routine set in the morning?
So I do not. I am not a morning person, and I think my team probably even knows that. But I am a night owl to an extent. I do a lot of work, certainly after the kids go to bed, and that's just always in college and even after college. That was always, working at 9 to 10:30 or something. I just feel like I can crank things out then. And I even work out later in the day, which I think it just complements. My wife is a very morning person. She's a nutritionist and a gym coach, so she does some 5 a.m. classes and things like that. So it's nice. She goes, does that, and then I'll do the evening part.
Oh, that is so cool. I'm always fascinated by the answers to that question, just because I think no routine is perfect for anybody, right? Like whatever is best for your lifestyle. And I tend to agree with you. I go through spurts, like where all of a sudden I'll be up at 4 o'clock in the morning and getting to work and just going after it. Then other times I'd rather work at night. And I agree with you that there's a lot of times I think my creative brain works better at night than maybe some other things. So yeah, I'm all over the board. I'm not the exact same time in the morning, every morning type of guy. But I just love that question, just to kind of get a sense of people's different routines and how they go about their business.
I love it.
All right. The last question I'm going to ask you, and this kind of goes with and this goes away from our quick hitters here, but is this something you could see your kids pursuing at some point?
I do. I do. I think I'd probably go similar route to my mom. Uh, I would never say like, "Oh, this is what you're going to do," or "Oh, I'm so excited for you to," like even those little implications and
Yeah.
right subtleties, I think do play into it. They are around the shops probably more. Well, when I was their age, I probably was still around the shops, but my daughter loves coming into the one store that we live closest to, and we have well, I think just back to my mom being involved, we have a lot of female staff, and so there's at least one or two female staff at every shop for sure. And the one female service advisor we have at that store is she just loves kids, bubbly, and my daughter's name is Charlie. She will go sit next to her name's Maddie. She'll sit next to Maddie. She'll fake answer the phone. When Maddie's taking notes, she'll be writing something. And
Oh,
recently, a customer came in and she was just like, "Oh," and first thing out of her mouth goes, "Do you need tires?" And I think the entire everyone just started laughing. It was great.
she's a
And my little
natural.
guy loved it, running around the shop, climbing into cars, looking under things. So they're definitely going to be exposed to it, and I'm having a ton of fun. Even my mom's having a ton of fun. So selling by no means is even remotely on the radar. And I do think back to that nostalgic point I've always said of late. I would love to get to the point that they could at least tell me no. I
Ooh,
don't need it to be a yes. I don't need it to be this is a great opportunity. I just want to at least do it long enough or well enough that they can tell me no. And then I know we can go figure out a different path.
wow. That is incredible. And your story is incredible. The business is incredible. And I just had so much fun over the course of our time talking today, and feel like I've got a lot in common with you in general, but this was just a fun conversation. The hour went flying by, and just applaud you for everything that you're doing, that you will continue to do, for just running a great business and making your mom proud.
Well, thank you. And yeah, if you're ever in Chicagoland, stop by.
I will do that. Last question. Are you a Bears fan?
It sounds like I might become an Indiana Bears fan after the news
It
this morning.
sounds
Yes,
like
yes.
as a Packer fan, I hate that so much. Like I want the rivalry, and the rivalry will always be there. But Soldier Field gets a lot of hate, and my father-in-law is a diehard Bears fan and used to be a season ticket holder, and so we would go occasionally to Bears games. And I don't know what it is. I might be the only one, but I always enjoyed Soldier Field. So I I'll be sad the day that goes away.
Yes, I'm very much with you. I actually didn't even want them to go to Arlington. I just think
Yeah.
there's something special about being on the lake, the skyline in the background, and
Oh, it's
it
beautiful.
is. I'm willing to put up with the right. It always feels like there's three bathrooms somehow in that place, and you go to the bathroom and you come back a quarter later. Getting a beer is not very
That's
easy.
true.
Yeah, it's not set up for these large crowds, but it's also the bit nostalgic that how old that stadium is and its roots and everything there. And yeah, I will be sad that it won't be downtown. I know a lot of the ticket holders and friends that are big fans, they always complain about the traffic. And I just kind of laugh because I'm like, we have traffic Tuesday at 10 o'clock in Chicago. Like, when is there
You're
not
always
traffic?
going to have traffic. Yes,
Yeah,
you're
I'm
always
like, we
going to have
live in
traffic.
Chicago. Like, what were we expecting? So, I think it will be sad, but I actually think I prefer Hammond where they're going over Arlington.
All right.
I
All
think
right.
it could be very cool. There's going to be a lot that they can do with it. It's such a blank canvas, I guess, right? That I think that they have potential to do it right.
Are they doing a dome?
I would assume they are because that is another thing that, right, all these owners want to talk about is just how much revenue they can generate with off-season events.
Get a
And
Super Bowl?
even just concerts and all that, right? It's like you can't have a concert at Soldier Field in January.
No,
Yeah.
no. It'll be a sad day. I for that. It just even talking with my father-in-law about it. There again, sentiment and being just to have so many memories there that it'll be sad to see it go away. But man, what a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Hope we get to do it again sometime, and just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing an amazing job.
Oh, we'll appreciate that, and same to you guys with WrenchWay and the shops and everything. I love it too. So I think it's two-way street always in this industry. There's so much good happening, and we should all be really prideful of that.
Love it. Well, thanks again.
Awesome. Take care.
That wraps up another episode of Beyond the Wrench. If you like this episode, please show your support by rating and following the podcast. You can also watch the video interviews on WrenchWay's YouTube channel. Speaking of WrenchWay, Beyond the Wrench is managed and produced by the WrenchWay team. WrenchWay is dedicated to promoting and improving careers in the automotive, diesel, and collision industries. In partnership with ASE, we run the ASE Connects community, which empowers shops and dealerships with reliable data, school connections, and industry insights while helping grow the future technician workforce. You can learn more by visiting wrenchway.com. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.